Yo, Jesse the Imaginer here with Conversations on Culture and Craft. This is part two of my interview with Carlos Chavez, Executive Director of Morpheus Youth Project. He's going to talk about his story and how it intertwines with the graffiti element of hip hop. Also, really beautiful ending to this part of the interview where Carlos talks about the spirituality of hip hop. Tune in the whole 13 and a half minutes. You will not regret it. And then stay tuned for part three. Cool. So you grew up, with that dance influence, and then when did you kind of get into more the graffiti art element of hip hop?
Always was an artist, So I used to always do, I guess what you would call black booking now. I always was sketching and doing stuff, but I was always just doing art in general. Just in an art class, I always kind of excelled. I always did really well in art class. But when hip hop style of graffiti came around, when that became popularized, that really struck me hard. Like I remember, it's funny because even like when I first heard like Africa Bambaataa, regardless of this, I don't want to go into controversy or anything like that around Africa Bambaataa, but when the first time I ever heard that music, it blew me away. I knew that it was something that I was connected to. I didn't know how, I didn't know why. I just knew that it had,
you felt it
was part of me.
Yeah.
I knew it was something that represented me, and that was the same way that I felt about like graffiti art when I first saw that. I always thought it was the most beautiful thing. And I used to love seeing graffiti, like pieces that people would do in the city, and in San Jose, you didn't see a ton of it like that. I would say, there were definitely some dope writers in San Jose during the time that I was growing up, but I didn't really know that kind of underground scene. I just knew that it was a style of art that I liked, and I was I didn't understand the larger culture and kind of what it meant to be a part of that. I wouldn't go so far as to consider myself a writer. I would call myself more of a graffiti artist.
What's the difference?
Well, like writers, that a lot of writers, they start really young, and like in middle school and even high school, and they come up with a name that they tag, and it's a way of just kind of getting your name out there, an alias. There's a culture around the idea of getting over, and so it starts off with a tag, just having a decent tag and working on that until you develop a really good solid tag, and then and that's basically just like your own personal font is really what it is, but it's got way more flavor, than anything you'll find in a Word document,
Yeah.
But and then kind of your next step would be like straight letters or like throwies. Throwies are like your bubble letters. It's something that you throw up really quick. So you're throwing a fill. You're putting a fill in there really fast, and then you're doing your outline and you're out. And so that's why they call them throw ups or throwies, because you're throwing them up really fast, and you're getting them up and getting out of there. You don't want to get caught. And then eventually you kind of move on to more intricate stuff, and to where you start doing piecing, and you start putting, like really working on, I would say, more the artistry of it, like really developing into something where it's more of a, like a production, it's more of like a, something that you're putting more concept into, and you also use it as a way to kind of extend that voice a little further, because in a piece you can tell a lot more of a story than you can through a tag or a throwy,
Yeah.
Unless you're outright just writing a poem or something, or saying something, that's where a piece can kind of like transcend, just a single word, that's because you got your feel, you got your background, you got characters, you got all different things that you can incorporate into these things, and it's of course evolved in a lot of different ways. I always was just like the biggest wannabe for the longest time, doing just like black book style stuff. When I was in high school, um, I was a pretty good artist, and I was starting to figure out how to do. I definitely had a good bubble letter, and it's funny because I can't do bubble letters for shit now, but
Yeah.
I had a decent bubble letter, and I used to do kind of like the I remember that style of making things look like chrome, like it's shiny, and you got the reflection. You could see like the horizon line and like the sky, and then the kind of the ground within the shine, within the reflection. That was really popular, and I got really good at that. And so I used to do that, and it was popular during the late '80s. Everyone was wearing like the Guess jean overalls, and like, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna go into some hip hop history that's gonna make you want to puke. But like the Guess jean
Gotta
overalls,
have
and
it all.
the folks used to like, people would like, they would buy me lunch for like weeks just to do to do graffiti on the overalls. You would do it on the pants, like on the where the thighs are, the front thigh area, and you would do them right here in the front, like where the pocket. You might even, because everybody used to have the one side down, or they might have both sides down, and you might even do a burner on the inside. And then everybody had like, we're Chicano too, you know what I mean? So my background in terms of hip hop is different because it was a blending of Chicano culture and hip hop culture. And so for us, the graffiti went on our hats that we flipped upside down, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was kind of, it was a blending of those two things. And then of course, Chicano hip hop, as that started to evolve, that like Be Real was like a Cypress Hill was like when they came out, Chicanos were like, yes, that spoke who we were,
That's what's up.
we were in there, you know what I mean? Like that's how we felt,
Yeah.
we knew it, we always were in there, but that validated it, it was
Insane
like, yes.
in the membrane.
Yeah, man, we had something. Um, and finally, someone was really doing it right when Cypress Hill came out. It was raw, and just skill wise solid.
It's about channeling your art into something that's actually going to work for you. And like opportunities where you could like get paid to like do dope murals and put up your art in the city.
That's just it. Like now, graffiti when I was growing up was just seen as a vandal type of thing, like it was just considered vandalism, you know what I mean? Like it was definitely taboo. No one wanted anything to do with it. Now graffiti art is becoming more widely accepted. It's become like a commodity at this point. Like it's something that, it's interesting because on the one hand you have folks that still want to label it as a taboo, but those same people will use it to promote, anything that they're selling, you know what I mean? So there's a double standard, around graffiti, and there always has been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'll always hear people say, well, I like the stuff that looks really nice and pretty, it's actually a painting of something, but I don't like it when people just scribble on the walls. Well, what they don't understand is that it starts from a scribble on the wall. You don't just start off doing a piece. You know what I mean? You have to work your way to that. You know what I mean? And it takes a while to evolve that. And it takes a really long time to really develop your style, and to have like solid foundation. You know what I mean? Just like any of the crafts that are part of hip hop culture, every one of the crafts, every one of the elements has layers to it, and there are legitimate art forms. There are legitimate like there are heavy layers to everything. You're going to continue, like you can never run out of material that you can create within any of those realms, and you can always reinvent, and that's the thing. The beauty of it is that originality is at the forefront of anything hip hop. So that means that it's constantly evolving, and that means that you have to constantly evolve with it, regardless of whatever element that you're putting yourself into. And through that is where you elevate to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? And and it's funny because I really appreciated in the interview that you did with Merck about how you talked about the spiritual aspects of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's rooted in that. You know what I mean? You think about the cipher. whether it's a cipher like that breakers are involved in, or that MCs are involved in. You see DJs ciphering, like the Scratch Pickles, and the Bay Area cats that used to cipher with the turntables, man. Shadow and different folks that used to get down, and then also with graffiti, with people doing the black books, or even just kind of doing productions where you got 5 different people all getting down on one burner, like that's all something that comes from, it's indigenous, you know what I mean? Like all of these art forms are rooted in who we are from our most indigenous, like as far back as we can go. And a lot of it was intended to be spiritual. It was a way to elevate our consciousness, and it was a way to elevate our sense of spirituality. If you think about the dance element of it in the cipher, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like the DJ aspect, that's the drum, right? The skin of the drum, and every ceremonial circle that indigenous people have, regardless of whether you're Celtic or you're Anasazi, your Seminole, whatever, it doesn't matter what you're rooted in, there's a ceremonial circle with the drum and the skin of the drum. That's the rhythm that matches your heartbeat, that matches, the rhythm of your body, and then the dance is a form of sacrifice. You know what I mean? Even the drum, when you're drumming for hours, you know what I mean? There's a form of sacrifice that's taking place because you're sweating. You know what I mean? And especially with the dance, it's a sweat, just like a sweat lodge. You know what I mean? That's part of what the sweat lodge is about, is you're sacrificing a part of you to reach another level of spiritual enlightenment. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
And so they'll say about like dance is that there becomes a point where you lose yourself or you get struck. You know what I mean? They'll say that in church, you got struck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What that means is that
when the spirit hits,
gone beyond yourself, and you've lost yourself at that moment. And a lot of times people will break down and cry, or they'll just release in some big way, or they'll have experienced just a great amount of joy. That's being struck, and that's reaching that other level of spirituality, that other spiritual sense, being closer to our ancestors, you know what I mean? Them speaking through us, you know what I mean? It's all a spiritual thing.
No, I'm appreciating you saying that. I feel that in freestyling. Sometimes you're just, you could be freestyling and you're just talking about your day, you're making connections, but you never know exactly when it's going to hit. And if the energy's right in the cipher, you're channeling some sort of wisdom. You don't know what you're saying, but it's like, whoa, this is coming through me, and it's connecting in the rhythm and in the cadence that's like, I'm like creating this vibration that has me high, and the people around me are rising to that vibration, or someone else is spitting that, you're rising to their vibration. So that's what's up. I love that. Yeah. I love that aspect of hip hop, and I think it connects to like the knowledge of self and the knowledge of community, and you're bringing that sort of knowledge and wisdom to the forefront.